I never imagined that the journey of two brothers would change the world forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a normal afternoon. The sun hung low, casting long shadows on the ground. I stood beside Jonah, my younger brother, his face bright with innocence, unaware of the storm brewing within our family. We were just two kids, lost in a world of dreams, sparring in the backyard, laughter slipping through the cracks of reality. Then it happened. A shuddering crash of glass echoed through the house, slicing through our play like a knife. We froze, hearts racing, the laughter fading into cold air. I could feel Jonah's small hands trembling as he glanced up at me, confusion mapping his features. What was that? The question hung between us, heavy and ominous. The house felt alive, and not in a comforting way. It was a beast ready to roar. I rushed inside, adrenaline pumping through my veins. Mom was standing in the kitchen, tears streaming down her face, a shattered vase at her feet. Dad's voice, usually steady and strong, was raised in a way that made my stomach twist. I felt the walls closing in, the air thickening with fear and chaos. Why were they fighting? The sound of their raised voices wrapped around me, an unbearable blanket of dread. Suddenly, the world flipped. Jonah was at my side, eyes wide and searching. What's wrong? His voice was small, breaking. I felt a need to protect him, to shield him from the truth that was creeping in. But how could I? I was just as lost. Dad stormed out, slamming the door, leaving a wreckage of silence behind. Mom sank to the floor, hands clasped over her mouth. My heart thudded, aching with the weight of it all. We were just boys, but I felt the sudden need to be a man. I knelt beside her, my own tears burning my eyes. Mom, please, what's happening? Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, I saw fear, helplessness. It was a bottomless pit, and I was peering into it. It's not your fault, it's just. Her words fell away, tangled in sobs. I wished I could take it all back, push aside the broken pieces of our family like dust, but they lingered like shadows, never fading. Days turned into weeks. Everything felt fractured. Jonah and I tried to keep things normal, burying ourselves in games, laughter, anything to escape the truth. But there was an electric current running beneath the surface, a tension that tightened around our hearts. Every night, as the house quieted down, I heard whispers of promises broken, lies woven into the fabric of our home. I believed Mom when she said things would be okay, but would they? One fateful night, just as we'd finished another round of pretend, a strange noise echoed from the back of the house. My heart began to race. It was different this time. An unnatural creaking, like the house itself was groaning. Jonah, sensing my pulse quicken, took my hand, his grip small but reassuring. We tiptoed toward the sound, curiosity peeking through the fear. As we turned the corner, something caught my eye. A light, flickering beneath the door to the basement. The door I wasn't supposed to open. My breath caught. What if something was down there? What secrets lay hidden beneath? I looked down at Jonah. His eyes sparkled with what could only be described as a mix of excitement and fear. I hesitated. Should we? But the decision hung in the air, and for a moment, time stopped. In that instant, I understood whatever was down there could either destroy us or set us free. Love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the door creaked open, the light embraced us softly, illuminating the dusty steps that spiraled into the unknown. I hesitated, my heart racing as shadows danced across the walls. The air was thick and musty, filled with an electric tension that made my skin prickle. Jonah tugged at my sleeve, his wide eyes sparkling with a blend of fear and exhilaration. Can we really go down there? He whispered, his voice trembling. The basement had always held an unspoken mystique, a place anchored in our childhood imaginations, a treasure trove of secrets that felt just out of reach. In that moment, I wasn't sure if we were seeking answers or inviting a darker storm into our already shaken world. That I took a deep breath and nodded. Stick close to me. The words felt brave, even though my stomach twisted with uncertainty. We stepped into the basement, the light flickering above us like a heartbeat. At first, it seemed empty. Dust motes danced in the air, spinning wildly from our movements. The shelves were lined with boxes, old toys, and forgotten memories wrapped in layers of neglect. But what caught my eye was a small, tarnished chest sitting in the farthest corner, half hidden beneath a pile of old blankets. It was pathetic and inviting all at once. "Look," I said, pointing it out, trying to mask my apprehension with excitement. Jonah rushed forward, his small hands clumsily pushing the blankets aside. I followed him, curiosity mixed with dread. As the last layer was pulled back, the chest revealed itself a relic from a time long past. It was locked, but the old padlock looked brittle and worn. We exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between us. This treasure, whatever it held, felt crucial. Maybe it contained glimmers of our old world, a connection to the family we desperately sought. "Can we open it?" Jonah asked, hope lighting up his face. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. With the twinge of apprehension, I pulled out my pocket knife, its blade still sharp from years of adventure. As I pried at the lock, the sound of metal scraping echoed, a crescendo of anticipation hanging in the air. With one final twist, the lock broke free, falling to the floor with a dull thud. Jonah's breath hitched, and together we lifted the lid. The scent of aged paper wafted from within, swirling a nostalgia that caught me off guard. Inside, we found stacks of letters, brittle and yellowed, bundled together with a frayed ribbon. My heart sank as I realized they were written in Mom's familiar handwriting. I felt the world around us grow quieter, as if demanding respect for the secrets we were about to unveil. "Should we read them?" Jonah asked, and his innocence stung. "What if it's just boring stuff?" I hesitated, my gut twisting with conflicted emotions. "Let's just take a look." We pulled out the first letter, the ink smudged in places, but the words still clear. It was filled with expressions of love, words meant to bridge the distance created by untold truths. My heart ached as I read about how much she had cared for us in those moments, how she dreamed of keeping our family whole. But the more I read, the more I found hints of despair laced within her devotion, an undercurrent of fear and heartbreak that suggested she had been fighting an invisible battle long before that fateful afternoon. Every letter drew us deeper into the turmoil she faced, layers of vulnerability laid bare. But then I flipped to a final note, crumpling it slightly in my grip. The last line made me freeze, my breath hitching in the back of my throat. If the truth comes out, it could tear us apart. But it's a truth I can no longer keep hidden. Outside the basement, the sound of the front door slamming shut reverberated through our home. The tension in the house climbed, a palpable wave of panic that clutched at my chest. Jonah looked at me, confusion twisting his brow. Determination. "Boys, what are you doing down here?" Her voice rang with urgency, slicing through the air like glass. She stepped forward, but there was no comfort in her eyes, just a desperate plea for us to forget what we'd uncovered. "Mom, we found these letters." "You wrote stop," she yelled, panic washing over her face. "You shouldn't have looked." Defiance surged within me, an urge to fight for the truth. "Why not? What were you hiding from us?" But the battle unfolded before us. All the unsuspecting chaos came crashing down as she closed the distance, fear sparking in her gaze. Behind her, shadows loomed in the doorway. Dad had returned. A cold silence enveloped us, and in that moment, the fragile wall between our innocence and the hard reality cracked wide open. The air buzzed with unasked questions, the darkness closing in as my mother's denial clashed with the chaos that symbolized everything we'd tried to escape. Jonah stood beside me, hands squeezing mine with an intensity that ignited my protective instincts. As the truth loomed, ready to engulf us in its chilling embrace, realization hit. Whatever was buried in Mom's heart could very well decide our fate. And in the fragile silence, I knew we were just at the edge of the storm, with secrets threatening to rain down and drown us. The air felt electric, crackling with a tension that made it hard to breathe. I counted the heartbeats in the silence, each one echoing the unspoken thoughts bouncing around the room. Mom looked more like a shadow than a person, her figure tense and drawn. Dad's presence loomed behind her, a silent sentinel, eyes darkening as he took in the scene. Jonah squeezed my hand tighter, his small fingers trembling. The camaraderie we had shared, chasing shadows and exploring forgotten corners of our world, felt suddenly fragile under the weight of that moment. "Mom," I pressed, my voice steadier than I felt. "What are you so afraid we'll find out?" She looked at me, her eyes wells of sorrow and fear. It was a look that said so much more than her words ever could, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I could see the little girl she once was, lost in the grips of uncertainty. It unnerved me to think that in our quest to understand her, we might stumble upon a pain we were not yet equipped to handle. "Please," she whispered, and I could see tears glistening in her eyes. "Let it go." Jonah's voice was soft as he asked, "Why are we not supposed to know, Mom?" His innocence twisted the knife in the air, stirring the surface of her fears. "Because sometimes knowing hurts more than not knowing." Her voice cracked, a raw edge to her words that sliced through the dense unease. "I did this to protect you, protect us." The irony of it twisted in my gut. Hadn't we been the ones seeking answers all along? The letters crumpled in my hand felt like they held our family's heartache, yet I could sense their potential to change everything we thought we knew or could hope for. Protect us from what? I pressed, my heart racing as the question hung heavy in the air. From the truth. Mom's voice shifted, no longer pleading but resolute, as if she were standing at the precipice of a battle line, poised to protect us from the chaos she feared would ensue. "But the truth is in those letters." I cried back. "It's your truth, Mom, not ours. We deserve to know. We've been kept in the dark for far too long." At that moment, the door creaked slightly, barely open, and a figure emerged, uncertain but undeniably present. It was my older brother Caleb, who had been living in a haze of silence and bitterness since everything fell apart. I hadn't even realized he was home. Just the sight of him sent waves of conflicted emotions crashing through me. "Meg, stop," he said, his voice low but firm, echoing my mother's fear. The room's air thickened again, and the shadows seemed to stretch, waiting for something to give. "This is not the time. Not the time?" I nearly shouted, feeling the whirlpool of frustration and fear consuming me. "We're standing on the edge of and, just like that, the dam broke." "On what? Telling us a story we've never been a part of?" Caleb's voice grew louder, a flare-up of pent-up emotion. "You show up after months, and you think we owe you silence?" His accusation hung in the air. Mom's face had turned pale, and every mark of frailty faded beneath the weight of his words. "Caleb, don't." My voice trembled with the urgency of the moment as I felt Jonah inch closer, trying to shield himself within our family bubble, but it was cracked and crumbling. "What is so hideous in our reality that we can't handle knowing?" I implored, desperation creeping in as I focused back on Mom. "You've kept us isolated, believing that we were somehow safe, that everything would finally be okay. But look at us. None of us are okay." A single tear slipped down her cheek, and I saw it catch the flickering light. "You don't understand," she murmured, desperate for grace while bound to the weight of our reality. "No, maybe we don't." Caleb's voice shook and echoed with the pain of everything left unsaid. "But we have a right to try." In that moment, the dust and mustiness of the basement felt like it was reflecting the memories we had long ignored. It suddenly became clear, to realize our potential, we needed to confront our past. But more importantly, I was driven by the clarity that whatever truth lay buried among the pages of those letters was unfurling amidst us, ready to scorch the fragile fabric of who we believed we really were. Before I could respond, Dad spoke, his voice commanding, pulling together the scattered threads of the room's tension. "Everyone needs to calm down," he said, stepping forward as his presence momentarily wrapped us in a shroud of authority. "This isn't helping anyone." "Then what will help?" Jonah uttered, his small voice bringing painful honesty that knocked on our hearts. His innocence felt like a tether to hold on to the remnants of the hope we all needed. Maybe Mom's voice broke, and for a moment, she seemed lost. "Maybe it's time for the truth to come out. But you need to promise me that you'll be ready for what you find. You're not going to like everything." The fear dripping from her words sent chills down my spine, but in that moment of acceptance, something shifted. It felt like we were on the brink of a decision that would set us on an uncharted course. But before I could answer, a sound pierced through the tension, the blasted ringing of Dad's phone, jolting everyone back into reality. He glanced at the screen, and his expression morphed into one of unease, an unexpected pallor sweeping over him. "What is it?" Mom asked, panic echoing in her voice. Before he could respond, I felt the ground give way beneath my feet as the truth shifted ominously in the air. "It's your father," he said, voice breaking as the words weighed down in silence, but echoed louder than any assurance. "He wants to talk." And just like that, the promise of our revelations hung in the balance. waiting to be grasped or lost forever. In that heartbeat, dread coiled in my chest as uncertainty merged with a twinge of hope, hanging us all on a precipice we could never have expected. The room was steeped in a suffocating silence, echoes of Dad's ominous words lingering in the air like a thick fog. All eyes turned toward him, yet even the light in his gaze seemed dimmed by the prospect of a conversation that would unravel the tightly wound threads of our lives. My heart raced, tuning into the vibration of anxious energy that buzzed among us. "What does he want?" Mom asked, a tremor threading through her voice as if each word was an unraveling stitch. It was a question that held so much weight, a question I feared to have answered. "Does it matter?" Caleb snapped. "Maybe it's about time we stop living by someone else's rules." There was a fierceness in his tone that surprised even me. It was as if he had been holding back torrents of frustration for too long, and now he was ready to unleash the storm. "He's still our family," Dad replied, defensively, his face hardening with every syllable. "What kind of family keeps secrets like this from each other?" My voice wavered, cutting through the tension like a jagged blade. Jonah squeezed my hand tighter, as if seeking refuge in the only semblance of stability left in this crumbling house of cards that in that moment, I caught a glimpse of my mother's lost youthful spirit, the girl who once held dreams of far greater things than hiding from the shadows of her past. I wanted to reach in and pull that girl from the grip of anguish, but the years of hurt had wrapped tightly around her. "Why now?" I demanded. "Why after all this time?" A sound escaped Mom, a half-sob that felt like broken glass, and my heart sank. Her sorrow rolled like thunder across the room before she could manage, "Because it's too much to carry alone." "Then stop carrying it," Caleb exploded, throwing his arms wide as if inviting the weight of the world to join us in the intimate theater of our shared grief. "You don't have to be alone in this." Jonah's normal bravery faltered then, as he watched the storm erupt around him. His small figure trembled slightly. I turned to him, crouching at his level, trying to create a bubble of calm in the whirlwind of chaos. "Hey, it's okay," I whispered, softening the rough edges of our reality that seemed too jagged for him to touch. But before he could answer, Dad held up a hand, his expression shifting into determination. "He'll take the call," he declared, moving towards the doorway like a soldier heading into battle, each step heavy and laden with years of unresolved tension. "What if he's just here to push more pain into our lives?" Mom's voice cracked again, her eyes wells of dread that threatened to overflow. "We can't let him pull us under. We need to be strong, or we need to be honest," Caleb shot back, staring after Dad with a mix of fear and defiance that mirrored my own. Our lives had long suffered under the veil of silence, whether it was from the past's cruelty or the present's uncertainties. As he grasped the door handle, something flickered in my chest, a fledgling sense of courage. "Mom," I said softly, feeling the tremor underneath my desire to reach for the truth. "What if confronting it head-on could finally let you see that you don't have to bear this alone?" She regarded me cautiously, her battle-weary eyes searching for the truth within the haze of our turmoil. "But what if it's too late?" she whispered, fear lacing her tone like a haunting echo. "Then let's find out together," I said, my words igniting an ember of hope that I meticulously fanned into life. "We don't have to do this alone anymore." In that moment, the silence became a cradle of possibility, and for the first time, the darkness didn't feel so consuming. As Dad stepped outside, I thought of all the uncharted territories ahead of us, the truths that could either set us free or entangle us further. Jonah's small hand slipped from mine for just a moment, and I felt a surge of dread. I turned to find him kneeling at the bookshelf, the light catching his features as he focused intently on one crumpled piece of paper peeking out from an unorganized stack. Without realizing it, I held my breath, half expecting calamity, and then he froze, his eyes widening, mouth opening slightly, as if the very foundation of our world was shifting. "Meg, look," he breathed out, fear and awe crashing together in his small voice. "Jonah, what is it?" I braced myself, already prepared to deal with whatever revelation could spring from the delicate threads of our family history. My heart raced. What more could possibly unravel from this story that hung around us? He reached for the letter, pulling it free. "It fell out. It's from her," he stammered, disbelief mingling in his tone. The handwriting was achingly familiar, a cursive that danced on the edge of recognition. A mix of fear and hope unfurled in my chest as I took the letter from his trembling hands. I could feel all eyes on me, all breaths held in anticipation as I carefully unfolded the delicate paper. There was no turning back. Whatever words spilled from the ink would send ripples through our reality, binding us to a destiny we were yet to comprehend. And as I began to read, the weight of the moment crushed down on me, an unreal silence amplifying the racing rhythms of my heart. A single, shattering revelation crystallized in my mind, one that stood poised to redefine everything, not just our family, but the very courses of our lives. But before I could comprehend the significance, the door swung open with a bang, and Dad returned. The color drained from his face, an unrecognizable emotion coloring his features. "We have to talk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And just like that, the ground shifted beneath our feet once again, pulling us into a deeper abyss. We were standing on the edge, and the fall loomed ever so enticingly close. The air in the room thickened again, the fragile bubble of hope that had surged moments before now teetering on the brink of destruction. Dad's voice, so gravelly and laden with burden, sent shivers radiating through me. The letter felt as heavy as a stone in my hand, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to read what was written on it anymore. The unknown, the truth, that terrible thing that had stirred restlessly in the depths of our family for so long was about to break the surface. My mother's gaze darted from Dad to Jonah, who shrugged his small shoulders up to his ears, an innocent flag waving in muted colors against the storm of our reality. His eyes reflected uncertainty, mirroring my own. I tucked the letter away, afraid that whatever words were written could shatter us or draw us together in ways we couldn't fathom yet. "Are you all right?" I asked Jonah softly, needing to pull him away from the edge of this precipice that was forming around us. He nodded slowly, but a tear slipped from his eye. "I don't want things to change, Meg." The simple weight of his confession slammed into me, and in a way, I wished I could promise him that they wouldn't. But the truth had claws, and they were already in the flesh of our family. "Neither do I confessed, kneeling next to him. "But sometimes change is what we need to heal, to grow." I reached out to wipe his own emotions swirling violently in tandem with his. "Mom?" He turned to her, an unasked question hidden beneath the layers of confusion. "Will it be okay?" Her breath hitched, and I could see the battle raging inside her. She wanted to protect him, to shield him from this world where our secrets lived and breathed. But it felt like even that simple instinct was growing impossibly complicated. "Sometimes things get messy," she admitted, voice shaking. "But we'll figure it out together. That I promise you." Hope flickered like a candle, fragile and almost imperceptible, but I clung to it. Dad shifted, his fingers worriedly twisting a ring. He always wore a tangible weight of responsibility passed down from generations before him. His posture seemed to collapse under the gravity of his own stress as he stepped further into the room. "We need to decide how to handle this, as a family," he declared, his tone shifting from that of a soldier to that of a man cracking under the weight of impending doom. "What did he say?" My voice was a whisper, hesitant to disturb the atmosphere that was humming with unspoken words. Dad glanced at each of us, hesitating, as if the past bore a brighter light on the surface of his memories. "He wants to meet. That's why he came back." My heart sank. What could he possibly want? The man who had created this rift among us, who had cast shadows on our childhood. Jonah's small hands trembled, and I took them in mine, squeezing them for support. "You don't have to do this," I said to Dad. "We can't just pretend it's all fine." "But running away hasn't solved anything either," Mom interjected, her voice steady now. "We've danced around the truth for too long." Caleb, who had remained silent, finally blurted out. "What else did he say? What did he really want?" His deep voice rumbled like a storm, crackling with emotions just below the surface. Dad's chin lifted slightly as he seemed to search for the right words, and I noticed something flicker in his eyes. Was it shame? Regret? "He said he's changed," he breathed out. "That he wants to make amends." An incredulous laugh erupted from Caleb. "Make amends? After all the years he left us? How does that even make sense?" "It might be a good thing." I tried, though my own voice wavered with doubt. "Maybe," but Dad raised a hand, cutting me off, an old authority creeping back into his posture. "I know what he put us through. I really do. But if he's really sincere, I don't want us to close the door on the chance of closure." The word hung there, heavy and oppressive. Closure, something we had chased our whole lives. Pieces of our hearts aching for a wholeness that was just out of reach. Is that really what we want? Caleb shot back. Or is it just what you want? The question mirrored a deeper conflict swirling within me. There it was, the fracture in our sense of unity. We were a family, yet divided by our experiences, haunted by the past that played out like a haunting melody we couldn't escape. I want to try for all of us, Dad said softly. His voice trembled, and it was in that tremor that I heard the ghost of a man who had fought to hold our family together even as the walls crumbled around him. I just want us to be safe, Jonah whispered, breaking the severity of our conversation. The innocence in his voice cut straight through the heaviness, piercing our protective layers. We will be safe, Jonah, I promised, my heart aching to keep him there, away from the dangers hidden in shadows. Yet, there was something underneath that promise, an unsettling anxiety that stirred within the realization that our family wasn't simply fragmented. It was teetering on the brink of chaos, ready to unravel into a mosaic with countless pieces, all yearning to fit together but unsure of how. If the universe had conspired against our ephemeral sense of safety. The door suddenly burst open once more, and there he was, our father's ghost made flesh, a figure I had never known but had felt echo through my memories like a haunting refrain. His presence shifted the entire atmosphere, pulling my heart into a vice grip, mixing fear with something startlingly akin to hope. "I'm here," the man said in a voice smooth and tentative, yet its edges were sharp enough to cut. And, in that moment, everything changed. The cliff we had been teetering upon ceased to exist, and instead, we were all plummeting into the unknown, gasping for air as we fell deeper into the abyss of revelations yet to come. The silence that stretched between us felt like an eternity, a chasm filled with unrealized thoughts and potentials as we stared at the man who had returned from where? From what dark recess of his own conscience? My heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out the cautious whispers of hope that still clung stubbornly to the edges of my mind. This was the man who had shattered our family, casting shadows that loomed over our lives like a gathering storm. "Who are you?" I blurted, my voice shaking from the weight of that question. "What do you want?" A flash of hurt crossed his features, but it was quickly replaced by a facade of calm. "Meg." He hesitated, a seemingly genuine attempt to connect, but the raw emotion in the air felt too dense for words. His words. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want to explain, to be part of this family again." Jonah clutched my hand tighter, eyes darting in confusion. The innocence that radiated from him stood in stark contrast to the grim reality unfolding before us. I felt his small frame tremble, and it forced me to focus. This was his experience, to the uncertainties of life stripped down to the raw bone. "Did you ever care?" Caleb challenged, his voice booming with protective fury. "You walked away when we needed you the most. What makes you think that we can just accept you back?" The weight of Caleb's words hung heavy in the room, and I remained nearly immobile, torn between anger, disbelief, and an unwelcomed flicker of curiosity. My eyes shifted back to the stranger, "Me father, but he was so unfamiliar now that I know I failed you," he said, his voice quivering under the strain of the moment. It was a truth I had long buried, yet it resurfaced as an echo of deep-seated bitterness. "You don't get to just decide when you start being a father," I shot back, the heat of my words wrapping around us like a blanket of resentment. "Years of silence don't just disappear because you decided to show up." His shoulders drooped, and for a second, I felt a pang of something that resembled pity. Could a man be sincere after so long? I sat back, trying to breathe through the whirlwind of confusion, and glanced at Jonah, whose gaze shifted between me and the man before us, struggling to comprehend the emotional storm he was caught in. "I want to show you I've changed," he pressed, his tone a mix of desperation and apprehension. "I've been working on myself. I've finally been coming to terms with the mistakes I made." "What mistakes?" Caleb folded his arms, cocking an eyebrow. "Leaving was just one of them. What about the years of pain?" The veiled depths of grief and anger in his response made me ache. Each word was a nail driven deeper, yet my father didn't flinch. Instead, he seemed to wear the weight of our collective past on his shoulders, visibly trembling under the burden. Jonah, sensing the rising tide of emotions, broke the tension with a bravery that belied his age. "You really want to fix things?" he asked directly, the honesty in his voice cutting through the emotional haze we were drowning in. His innocence was a refreshing breeze, and I marveled at the strength it took for a child to confront such a profound issue. "I do," our father replied earnestly, his gaze shifting to Jonah. "I want to know you, all of you, the real you. I can't change the past, but I want a chance to be part of your future." Goosebumps rippled across my skin as I watched Jonah's expression soften, even if just for a moment. Was it possible that someone could change? The flicker of hope I had almost extinguished began to take root in my heart, battling against the years of pain. Mom stepped forward, her brows knitted together. "This isn't something we can decide quickly. Trust isn't built in a day." Her voice was steady yet soft, an anchor amidst the storm. "We need time to breathe, to think. Right now, we need to be honest about what we want. What do we really want?" Silence overtook the room, each of us grappling with that question. In the void, I picked up the letter I had tucked away. It felt like a lifeline, something tethered to a truth I feared might unravel us. A part of me wanted to share it, to lash out with its contents, and bring clarity to this stalemate, and yet maybe I didn't want to complicate things further. Could I bear the weight of what those words revealed? My fingers traced the envelope, raw and tender, when suddenly, the door clicked open again. Someone new stood there, breathless and wide-eyed, the last person I expected to see, the last thread of the tapestry I thought I had unraveled. "I'm sorry I'm late," she exclaimed, stepping in with a determination that radiated strength. She'd always been our shadow, weaving in and out of our lives, a dear family friend who had seen it all, yet remained a gentle confidant. I took a stuttered breath, as the realization crashed over me. What truths might she hold? What secrets could she share? And how would they alter the fragile beginnings of an already chaotic reunion? With a heart pounding against the bars of uncertainty, and all eyes now drawn to her, I sensed another layer to our already complicated existence unravel before us, anxiety wrapping tighter around me. I had once hoped for resolution, but had only stumbled deeper into the labyrinth of our past. As she stepped forward, unveiling truths soothed and buried beneath years of pain, I knew that none of us were truly prepared for the revelations that lay ahead. If I had thought the air was thick with tension before, it now felt electric, sizzling with apprehension as our family friend stood before us. The way she filled the frame of the door, her face a mixture of worry and determination, brought an urgency to the already fraught atmosphere. My eyes flicked to Jonas, his expression a silent query mirrored in my own heart. What could she possibly bring to this tumultuous reunion? "Mia," my mother said, breaking the spell, her voice tremulous, "what are you doing here?" "I had to come. I couldn't just stand by and let you all go through this without my support," she replied, stepping into the room with a faint hint of fear dulled by resolve. "You all deserve to know the whole story." Caleb's glare turned sharper, his walls immediately engaged. "What story? More lies?" "No, not lies." She held her hands up, palms outward, a gesture of peace amid the flashpoints of conflict. "Just the parts unspoken for too long about your father. About our family." My heart raced, beating double time. I could feel the collective frustration crackling like an overused wire. None of us knew what secrets lurked behind those words or where this would lead us. But I felt an uneasy thrill at the possibilities, the hope that perhaps finally we would unveil the tangled strands that held our history captive. "Then just say it, Mia." Caleb's voice cracked, raw anger beginning to seep through. "What else could there possibly be to say that will explain any of this?" Mia's eyes softened, glancing momentarily at our father, who stood trembling, visibly struggling beneath the weight of the moment. "Your father, he didn't just walk away. There was so much he wasn't able to tell you at the time. He was fighting battles you couldn't see." I felt the air grow dense, saturated with the emotion that surged around us, as each word set off small explosions of disbelief. "He was in a downward spiral himself," she continued, pulling her gaze back to us, her voice calming as the storm within the room continued to rage. "I don't expect you to forgive him, but there's so much more than the betrayal you've carried." "What do you mean?" I pressed, the urgency bubbling up inside me, demanding clarity. Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself. "This isn't just a story about your father abandoning you. It's about a family struggling against something unseen: addiction, mental health issues. I've been a part of this turmoil for far longer than you know. An unexpected wave of realization coursed through me, making my stomach tighten. It hit me hard. Could our shared pain, the undeniable cracks in our family, sprout from complications that had gone unnoticed by those of us still standing? Addiction? Caleb echoed, and I could sense the confusion rattling through him. Yet the part of me that had been raised on silence now felt its grip loosening with new revelations. You're saying he was sick? Yes, Mia nodded, sincerity ringing in her voice. Sick, but not without hope. He needed help, but he kept it buried deep. There were moments where he thought you'd be better off without him than in the chaos of his life. He was wrong, dearest Caleb. But that was his fear. A stifling quiet fell over the room, laden with the enormity of both her admission and the potential shift in our understanding of our father. Jonah, grasping the entirety of our situation as best as a child could, leaned in closer to me, seeking reassurance. What does that mean for us now? I asked, a quiver in my voice as I dared to hope that perhaps there was a path toward healing one that I once thought was irretrievably lost. Mia looked each of us in the eyes, her gaze steady. It means you have a choice. You can hold on to the hurt, the anger, or you can choose to look deeper, acknowledge your feelings, and perhaps find a way to understand him. With time, with patience, those words hung in the charged silence, a thread tantalizingly close yet still out of reach. Hope tangled with skepticism, the potential to forgive tangled with the weight of betrayal. I found myself drawn inward, ruminating on the conflicts and what lay on the other side of the pain we had all experienced. Caleb broke the moment with a sharp, pent-up sigh, running a hand through his hair. And what if we're not strong enough? It was a question heavy with vulnerability, reminding us all just how fractured we truly were. Mia opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, another voice cut through the air, heavy and ominous. What the hell is going on in here? The voice belonged to a figure I hadn't expected at all, Aunt Rachel, my father's sister. Her entrance disrupted the fragile atmosphere, and all the possibility for resolution teetered uncomfortably on the edge of another cliff. As her presence washed over us, I could feel a tidal wave of memories move within summers spent together, laughter echoing through our childhood homes. But there was also the dark thread of unspoken histories and unresolved feelings tied to her as well. In her eyes, I could see the reflection of everything we had left unsaid, secrets my family hoarded like precious heirlooms. The room closed in again, the air thick with anticipation. Tension returned with full force, each of us bracing for a new confrontation, one that might just lay bare the truth of our fractured existence and all the complexities still swirling in the shadows of our past. How much more of our family's history was yet to be uncovered, and what new revelations would emerge from this unexpected reunion, sending us spiraling deeper into the chaos we desperately sought to understand. As chaos prickled the edges of our fragile progress, I couldn't help but wonder if I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Something told me it would change everything. The weight of Aunt Rachel's arrival pressed heavily on my chest, a sudden intrusion that unsettled the balance Mia had momentarily established. Her presence filled the entryway, shadows pooling at her feet like dark whispers from a distant past we had barely begun to explore. What are you doing here? Caleb had had enough. The frustration simmering within him boiled over. We're trying to talk to Mia about Dad. Aunt Rachel's lips pursed, but her eyes darted nervously between us, reading the tension in the room. I heard voices. I came to see what was happening, she replied, her tone defensive, as if accepting blame for something she never committed. You're not helping by standing there. Caleb's anger echoed off the walls, the betrayal of family laced in his words. Mia knows more about him than either of us do, I added quietly, feel the need to defend the fragile ground we had just begun to tread. We're trying to untangle what happened. Untangle? Rachel flashed back, her voice sharp. You think this is just about him, don't you? You have no idea what you're diving into, do you? Enough. Jonah's simple command had the power to still the room. He was coming into his voice, and in that, I felt a flicker of hope. If we all just keep yelling, then nobody will hear anything. I could see the softening of Aunt Rachel's expression, but still, the fire lingered in her stance. Jonah is right, she admitted, the acidity in her voice draining slightly. But there are truths that might hurt more than you're prepared for. Trust me. MIA's brow furrowed at Rachel's words, her hands gripping tightly at her sides. Then tell us. She pressed gently, urging Rachel towards honesty. If there's something more, it's time. A silence settled in the room thick, expectant, and Rachel finally exhaled deeply, the tension in her shoulders liquidating just enough for her to speak. You want to hear about your father? About his struggles? She paused, and I felt the air stir with the heavy burden of memories she harbored. Then start with me. The pain in our family is a two-way street. What do you mean? Caleb's skepticism returned, but I could see curiosity weaving its way through his unwelcome anger. Your father was a great man when I was a child, charismatic and full of life. But when we lost our mother, he lost himself to his grief. He didn't just fall to addiction. He was clawing at the darkness of depression. I watched someone I looked up to become a shadow of himself. As she spoke, every word pounded like a drum in my heart, the echoes of hurt intertwining with the fragility of our family narrative. I tried to get him help, but he resisted. He believed he had to be the strong one for everyone, that he had to shield us from his demons. That kind of bravery can cut deeper than any attack. I caught Caleb's eye again, the anger dimming slightly, but confusion taking hold in the space between us. But he left, Rachel. He walked away from all of us. I know, she whispered, her voice small now, full of regret. But it wasn't as simple as you think. And I wish I could say he was the only one struggling in silence. Her gaze dropped, and moments ticked by where we held our breath, as if the admission held the power to shatter the very ground beneath us. Then Mia stepped forward again, as steady as a lighthouse guiding a lost ship. We have the right to know everything, even if it's painful. Who else was struggling? Rachel swallowed hard. I didn't want to burden you, but it's time. You need to understand why our family fell apart. I was involved to self-medicating with my own substance abuse issues to escape. We were all broken, hiding from each other. I was trying to keep your father afloat while sinking myself. An overwhelming wave of guilt crashed over me. A collective wave as Rachel's confession pierced our small circle of tumult and revealed a havoc that was more chaotic than I had ever understood. Why didn't anyone say anything? I felt the tremor in my voice, questioning the silence. Why let us suffer without knowing? Because we didn't want you to know, Aunt Rachel replied. We thought we were protecting you. But what we did was throw you into the storm blindfolded, exposing you to wounds we could have saved you from. What if I'm still too scared to understand? I whispered, my heart pounding with vulnerability. What if uncovering these truths just leads to more hurt? Rachel approached me, a hand reaching out. Healing is excruciating but essential. Sometimes you must venture into the darkness to see how to create your own light. Hope flickered within me, but so did the fear. Could we allow ourselves to face our own frailty and find a way to piece together what remained? Abruptly, the front door opened and a cold gust swept through the house, accompanied by a figure clad in dark clothing. I turned, heart racing as the newly arriving presence disrupted the moment. My breath hitched in my throat, recognition strangling my heart. It was my father, standing on the threshold, a ghost of the man I used to know, wild-eyed and shaking, but somehow still standing. What have you done? His voice cracked through the tense atmosphere, echoing an urgency that reverberated deep inside us all. A new storm was beginning to brew. The room stood still as the soft cadence of my father's voice washed over us, his words infused with a desperation that was both haunting and familiar. I could hardly process the sight of him after all these years. The man I had built up in my memories resembled a weary traveler lost amidst the shadows of his own existence. Mia, he breathed, his eyes darting towards her with a flicker of recognition that seemed to crumble away the distance time had created. You shouldn't be here. You're not safe. Caleb's posture stiffened beside me, his fists clenched tightly at his sides, as if he were trying to contain an unresolved tempest. Not safe. You were the one who left us all behind. He stepped forward as anger surged back into the room like a wave crashing against fragile shores. Caleb, I murmured desperately, urged by a sense of looming dread. My father's presence, raw and unhealed, felt volatile, like adding gasoline to an already raging fire. But Caleb's fury flared brighter, drowning out my plea to "No," my father interjected, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and such harrowing urgency that it stilled Caleb's fury for a brief moment. You don't understand. It's worse than you think. Mia took a tentative step towards him, her eyes wide, imploring him silently with the weight of questions unasked. What do you mean? What do you know? He swayed slightly on his feet, as if the effort of holding us all together was too much to bear. I came back because I heard whispers, dark things, he stammered, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if the shadows lurking in our home might shift or emerge at any moment. Things they don't want you to know. What's happening? The tremor in my voice betrayed my fear as I took another step closer, caught in a whirlpool of confusion. I thought I could keep it all away from you, keep you safe. But now, he closed his eyes tightly. I fear you're already caught in something deeper than I realized. My heart raced with the weight of questions I desperately needed answered. Yet part of me hesitated, still tethered to the hope that perhaps there was a chance for forgiveness, a chance to heal this fractured family. Caught in what, Dad? Please, we're ready for the truth. Jonah, increasingly emboldened by the chaotic energy in the room, stepped in beside Mia, his small frame a testament to unyielding bravery. If something's wrong, we need to know. You owe us that much. Children, you don't understand, my father whispered, and for a fleeting moment, vulnerability glimmered in his eyes. There are forces at play. There are things I did to protect you that may only put you at greater risk now. Caleb shook his head, disbelief flaring in his eyes. We won't be intimidated by whatever demons you think are lurking. Those demons are your creation. Stop it, Aunt Rachel exclaimed, stepping toward her brother, her voice cracking under the weight of concern. All of you, this isn't helping. But emotions ran too hot for reason, and with each moment, my father's eyes darted toward the door, as if he could see something outside that none of us could. You have to trust me. The past, it's not as simple as you think. You're in danger. They've been watching you. I made mistakes that can't be undone. Who? The single word erupted from me, a question weighted by my own simmering fears. Who's watching us? What did you do? Do you really want to know? His voice dropped, slicing through the tension like a knife. Do you want to understand how far the darkness extends? I thought it would end with me, but it never does. It just spreads. In that moment, an unexpected kindness flickered through the chaos, a gentle hand on my elbow. Mia stood by my side again, grounding me amidst the whirl of words and accusations flying around us. Maybe we do want to know, she said softly, her voice unwavering and steady. Maybe the light comes from understanding what has kept us in the dark. But even as I grasped the filaments of hope rising, a chill swept across the room as my father's demeanor changed. His expression hardened, a tinge of desperation surfacing beneath the jagged lines of his experiences. No, he whispered, horror dawning on his face. They're here. The door slammed open, a fierce wind rushing in, and before I could process what was happening, figures cloaked in shadow appeared at the threshold. My pulse raced, fear erupting within me like a wildfire. Dad, I cried out, a realization dawning with icy clarity. What we were diving into was far deeper than we had anticipated. As I clutched Mia's hand tighter, panic mingled with determination. How could we possibly expose ourselves to this new threat and still heal the wounds of the past? The air vibrated with a sense of foreboding, and with frantic breath, I looked back at my father, half pleading for answers, half screaming in my mind for him to make sense of this chaos. But just as quickly as the tension built, its shattered sparks flew as someone yanked the door closed, leaving us hidden from the shadows, gaining ground, thoughts colliding painfully within me. Would we truly be safe from the darkness that seemed to echo through our bloodline? With the question hanging heavy in the air, the past was no longer just a specter. It was a living force pressing in around us, urging us forward into an uncertain future. The chaos that had enveloped our lives in recent weeks seemed to spiral into a crescendo, the shadows around us thickening as the room trembled under pressure. I was caught in a storm, torn between fear and an unyielding hope that perhaps the truth could bring us back together again. But the weight of the past was heavy, its grip like a vice that threatened to crush us all. My father's eyes darted toward the door, fear igniting a flame behind his gaze that I had never seen before, a deep-seated terror mingling with the desperation of a man who knew too well the consequences of uncharted darkness. You don't understand. They're coming for what I tried to protect you from. Aunt Rachel took a step closer, a shadow of anger dancing in her features. What are you talking about? But my focus remained on my father, the man who had once been so distant, yet now stood before us, trembling with an urgency that echoed my own pulse. There are things about our family, things no one will ever tell you. They want to keep it buried, hidden deep in the shadows. Caleb's anger flared again, but this time, confusion painted his brows. This is ridiculous. What are you trying to say? I felt Jonah's small hand tighten around my honest signal of unspoken fear, and what I wanted more than anything was to shield him from the looming turbulence. Dad, I steeled my voice. This is our family. If there's danger or secrets, we deserve to know. That's just it, he said, voice low and guttural. You can't know. Not yet. But the desperation in his words only fueled my determination. Why? What's so dangerous? If it's our lives, we can handle the truth. No, he exclaimed, desperation clawing at his voice. You don't understand the enormity of what's at stake. Rachel stepped beside me, her expression softening. What has been hidden in the shadows can only be brought into the light for us to understand how to heal. But before I could respond, the wind howled through the partially closed door, rattling the frames, shadows creeping like fingers curling around us from the outside. I felt as though my heart was trying to push through my chest, each beat surging with a painful rhythm of urgency. Meg, we should go, Caleb murmured, his brows knitted together. The weight of his worry anchored me, but something inside whispered that the longer we delayed, the less chance we had of confronting whatever darkness lurked on the fringes of our shattered family. Hold on, I said, grounding myself and turning my gaze back to our father. You need to tell us everything. Whatever it is, we can handle it. The only thing worse than knowing is not knowing. For a moment, I saw a flicker of admiration in his eyes, a glimmer of something akin to pride intertwined with remorse. You've all grown stronger than I ever thought possible. But this isn't just about me or our family. It's about them, my father replied, pointing uncertainly toward the door as the shadows began to coalesce, forming shapes on the other side. Then everything shifted. The door swung open violently, as if propelled by an unseen force, and a figure stepped through, tall and foreboding, its presence sending a shiver through my spine. Unlike the chaos that filled the room, this person seemed an embodiment of silence, certain and menacing. You shouldn't have brought them here, the figure said, their voice smooth yet slicing through the tension like a knife. Who are you? I found myself demanding, but it felt useless in that moment. My own resolution faltered under the weight of dread that washed over us all, swallowing pride, hope, everything that I am here to ensure the past remains buried, the shadow said simply, dark eyes gleaming with an unsettling confidence. Fear wrapped itself around us like an invisible chain, but courage surged deep within me, a flicker of defiance against the shadows. You can't just keep us in the dark any longer. The figure chuckled softly, a chilling sound. What you call truth could be your undoing. Courage will only take you so far. Most haven't lived long enough to tell the tale. Enough. My father's voice snapped, full of defiance. Against the storm brewing in the dark corners of our lives. This is my family. They deserve to know what we've endured. Yet knowing may not protect them. The figure stepped forward, the starkness of their presence compelling everyone to step back. Fear threatened to hold us hostage, but something inside me pushed back. You're not going to take them away. Our past doesn't define us anymore. We're stronger together. Jonah nodded beside me, a courageous spark igniting in his young heart. We're not afraid. Children often shout bravely, yet it is the ones who've seen darkness that know its true terror, the shadow said, voice penetrating with an ancient finality that struck a chord within all of us. Like sudden thunder amidst a downpour, a confrontation was inevitable. My father surged forward, protective, desperate. Leave them out of this. They'll do whatever I can to protect them. Just let the past be the past. The figure's gaze pierced my father, searching. You think actions of old will erase scars? You think running from demons will keep them away? In that moment, clarity coalesced around me. Maybe the truth is the only way through. We won't back down in fear. We have to confront this together. Then, to my utter shock, my father turned to me. His expression softened momentarily. You're right, he said, voice laced with defeat, yet filled with acceptance. I was wrong to keep you from the truth. It's time to face whatever it means for us. Just as he spoke those words, a sound like thunder ripped through the air, and the entity flickered, shadows distorting, snakes of darkness flicking from the corners of the room. No, I called out instinctively, tightening my grip around Jonah's hand, our pulse echoing the fearful anticipation that hung heavy in the air. Stay with us. I can't, the figure said, their voice tipping over into dismay. You've awakened forces best left asleep. In that heartbeat, everything shifted, a conflagration erupting around us. The tension ripped from silence, reality twisting as our past howled at us, ready to drag us under. In the midst of this chaos, a sudden warmth enveloped me, a light breaking through the shadows, illuminating our gathering, testing our resolve. We're not afraid of our past. We're ready to reclaim our future. As I shouted those words, something shifted in the air around us. The pressure lessened, shadows flickering like dying embers. For the first time, I sensed a bond, a tether crisscrossing between us. Voices surged with strength and resolve, exclamations of courage echoing through the depths. Nathan, Caleb, Jonah, and then Rachel and Mia joined in solidarity. Together, we united beneath the weight of our past. We would face it, not as broken souls, but as a family ready to heal. In that moment, everything crystallized around us, reunited, determined, filled with light. We were not just survivors, but warriors rising against the storm. And as the last shadow scattered away, I found a peace rushing over me, kind that resonates when the ache of longing is surrendered and the heart steps defiantly into a future of hope. Tonight, I realized we had the power within us to redefine our family's legacy. As we stood together defiantly against the night, painted with the gray edges of uncertainty, I knew the past had shaped us, but it would not dictate our fate any longer. And as the shadows faded to distant thuds, the finality of that moment wrapped around us heavily, yet affectionate light was our chapter turning anew. Together, I whispered, glancing at my family drawn together through blood and resilience, we can face any truth. In that instant, a single truth whispered through the silence, and I breathed it deep into my soul. There's nothing more powerful than a family united by love, ready to journey through whatever awaits.